Welcome to Combat Empire, your home for the biggest stories, wildest moments, and most intense breakdowns in UFC, MMA, and boxing. If you enjoy fight news, predictions, drama, and breakdowns like this, make sure to subscribe and help the channel keep growing. Every single subscribe helps us bring you even bigger combat sports content every week. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the video, because things are about to get violent inside the fight world.
Recently said that you act like a bad guy. You try to do too much in interviews. The crowd is going to be on my side because nobody likes my opponent. We will make him humble. Do you factor in what the crowd is going to be like on Saturday night? Do you not really pay any attention to that?
I couldn't care less. Ahead of my fight with Bilal Muhammad in Qatar, I walked out to booze. Go back and listen to the audio 30 seconds into the fight. Let's go, Gary, let's go. Dude, this sport is a pantomime. I couldn't care less what people think of me. What I care about is becoming the champion of the world and proving that I was right. That the dream I had as a 16-year-old kid growing up in Dublin, Ireland, I've fulfilled that dream. What anyone else thinks about me, it's irrelevant. My little boy is going to be front row. When I win that belt, I couldn't care what anyone else on this planet has to say about me or thinks about me. I want to see his smile. I want to see him and my wife. I want to give him the biggest cuddle I possibly can and say, Daddy did it. That's all that matters to me.
The tension is rising by the hour as the highly anticipated clash between Islam Makhachev and Ian Garry gets closer. With less than a week remaining until UFC 330, the controversy surrounding this championship fight has reached an entirely new level. Both fighters are ready, determined, and entering the final stages of preparation for a matchup that could ultimately become a defining moment in both of their careers. But even as Islam and Garry attempt to remain focused on fight night, the questions surrounding this matchup continue to pile up. Will Garry's size, speed, movement, and striking be enough to prevent the champion from imposing his suffocating grappling game? Or will Islam once again find a way to neutralize everything his challenger brings into the octagon? Let's break it down. For Chael Sonnen, there is something deeper about Ian Garry that could play an important role when he finally stands across from Makhachev. According to Chael, Garry isn't simply creating a character or making controversial statements because he wants more attention. Sonnen believes there are certain things Garry says with complete conviction because they are genuinely connected to his belief system. Ian truly appears to believe that he is destined to become champion, and that confidence becomes even more significant when you consider what defeating Islam Makhachev would actually mean.
Like, respect you and your greatness and everything that you've done, but he also says, you know, like, he wants to beat you in your own world on the ground, and he's gonna bounce your head off the canvas and stop history from happening. What do you make of this?
Bro, I saw his couple interview. Honestly, he looks very bad in this interview. Better for him training more and do less interview, you know. It looks like somebody in the house control him and tell him what to say in the interview, you know. He look very bad in the interview, honestly.
Yeah. Do you think when fight week comes at the press conference, things like that, is he gonna try to get under your skin?
And he tried to, in the fight week, he always tried to be like bad.
Do you know what? I think this is going to be Islam's toughest fight that we've seen recently. I think that stylistically, Ian Garry is a pretty bad matchup for him, to be honest. He's long, rangy, moves really well. You don't often see him getting taken down and held there. Super tall, super elusive, elite striking, judges the distance really well. He's young, he's fresh, he's not had loads of damage or anything like that. He's not got a lot of miles on the clock. But then we're talking about Islam Makhachev, mate. In my opinion, pound for pound number one, or in the argument at the minute for that. Once he gets hold of you, you're done. He's got that left head kick. People are saying, there's reports across the board, that he's the strongest person that people have ever fought. Apparently he's so physically strong, which is something that you can't see on TV.
Or just from a wrestling perspective?
Yeah, I think that's something that you can't really see. I mean, when you watch an opponent, right, you can always see the speed that they move, the techniques that they're using, the game plans and all that kind of stuff. What you can't see is how strong somebody is physically. I've seen multiple guys, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje and people like that saying that, like, wait, has he even fought Justin Gaethje? Don't think he has he? He must have. No, it must have been somebody else. Must have been somebody else. But seeing multiple guys say how strong he is physically, and once he gets older, guys, they don't seem to be able to escape. Ian Garry, though, very tough guy to get hold of, moves his feet really well, does everything good, and I think people over.
A victory wouldn't simply give Garry another impressive name on his record. It could immediately place him in the conversation as the #1 fighter in the world. And Sonnen believes Garry's ability to ignore criticism is part of what makes him such an unusual challenger. While fans may laugh at some of his predictions or question his personality, Garry rarely appears concerned with convincing everyone to like him. He only seems interested in convincing himself that he can win. Brendan Schaub, however, has a completely different interpretation of the Irishman's approach. Schaub believes there is a major difference between saying outrageous things for entertainment and making outrageous statements while attempting to establish yourself as one of the best fighters in the world. He pointed toward his own experience in podcasting, admitting that he has said plenty of things that shock people. But according to Schaub, those moments were often jokes shared between friends and everyone involved understood the context. With Garry, Schaub believes the situation is different. Ian is actively attempting to convince everyone that he can defeat Islam Makhachev, and Schaub isn't convinced that constantly making increasingly dramatic statements actually helps his case. For Schaub, the difference comes down to intention. When someone is clearly joking, the audience understands it. But Garry often delivers his statements with complete seriousness, particularly when discussing his own ability and what he intends to do against Makhachev.
You have Islam winning, or you have Garry winning?
I have Islam.
Do you guys have by finish, or do you guys have by decision?
I feel like every time that all four of us pick one guy, I should just go the opposite way just to have our, just to cover us.
Decision.
No, but I got Makhachev. I got Makhachev, man.
Yeah, I have to say the same.
I just feel like it's a competitive fight at first, but Makhachev is gonna dig deeper and break him.
I'm gonna say sub. I'm gonna say sub.
Sub. That's what I think.
You think he's gonna sub him? Sub.
I think so.
Someone put Ian as my favorite fighter.
Why are you laughing at them?
That would be crazy if he subbed him. I'm not going to go that far and say that. I think he's going to.
He just sets things up different, you know.
I think he finishes him. Ground and pound or submissions. Something happens.
Maybe slows him down with all the wrestling, you know, and slips a choke in there somehow.
That is why Schaub believes the reaction surrounding Garry has become so divided. Some people see genuine confidence. Others see a fighter trying too hard to create a persona before the biggest fight of his career. And while the debate surrounding Garry's character continues, Tim Welch prefers to bring the conversation back toward what will actually happen inside the octagon. Speaking about UFC 330, Welch emphasized just how significant this particular championship fight could become. He even suggested that fans should appreciate every remaining Islam Makhachev appearance, because there is no guarantee the champion will continue competing at this level for many more fights. Islam enters as the heavy favorite, but Garry brings a 17, one record, a 6'3" frame, unusual length, and the confidence of someone who genuinely believes he has discovered the formula to defeat the champion. And Welch believes that combination makes Garry a dangerous underdog. Joe Riggs takes that argument even further. Rather than simply acknowledging Garry's chances, Riggs is actually willing to back the Irish challenger. Riggs stated that he likes Garry's odds and believes Ian has a realistic opportunity to produce a massive upset against Islam Makhachev.
Those wrestlers,
yeah,
they really, I'm talking about those guys that go to the Olympics, that's a whole different level of wrestling.
Yeah, them dudes.
How did they get so good?
So over there, they put them in wrestling. They put them in both styles. Then at like 5, 6 years old, they identify like where a kid's gonna be better, and that's all they do. All the way up through school. Khabib and Islam started doing Sambo when they were super young, together, right, with his dad. So their whole life they did combat Sambo. Combat Sambo was actually like gi tops, punching, grappling. Like they were essentially doing MMA as like kids,
right?
And then just keep getting better. I think for my son, right, to have the mentality that I have or had, it's impossible. His life's too comfortable.
Yeah, okay.
His life's too comfortable. You and your brother and your children, they can't even make themselves think like you did growing up, where you grew up and how you grew up.
Right.
So it's like they all live like that. Because while Khabib, I want to see Khabib's son, and then the next Islam's son. Then we could see if how it does over there. Because for them, it was the way to live.
Right.
And change all of their
Everybody's lives, yeah.
Just like us.
Yeah.
The conversation eventually moved away from technique and toward Gary's personality outside the octagon, with Riggs and the other panelists joking about everything from his diet and personal views to his new PETA endorsement. Much of that discussion was clearly banter, but Riggs left absolutely no confusion when it came to his actual prediction. He is picking Ian Machado Garry to win. Arman Tsarukyan, however, expects almost the exact opposite result. Arman believes Garry may create some difficult situations for Islam, particularly early in the fight, but ultimately expects Makhachev to take control and potentially win by submission. Tsarukyan admitted that he would need to study more of Gary's previous fights before making a detailed assessment of exactly how strong Ian's takedown defense really is, but he doesn't need additional footage to understand the level Makhachev is currently operating at. Arman has experienced Islam's abilities firsthand, and in his opinion, defeating this version of Makhachev is an incredibly complicated challenge. Islam has become more complete, more experienced, and more comfortable under championship pressure. Even if Garry successfully defends the first takedown or creates problems with his movement, Tsarukyan believes maintaining that success across an entire championship fight is something completely different. Din Thomas, meanwhile, believes the entire discussion surrounding Ian Machado Garry is often distorted by personal opinion. According to Thomas, fans frequently judge fighters based on whether they like their personalities rather than objectively evaluating what they actually do inside the octagon. And Garry may be one of the clearest examples of that. Whether people enjoy his interviews or dislike the way he carries himself has nothing to do with his ability to fight. Thomas believes Garry deserves considerably more credit for being an intelligent and effective competitor who consistently finds ways to win. His style may not always produce spectacular finishes, but he understands distance, makes adjustments, remains disciplined, and rarely gives opponents the type of fight they want.
Break it down. Exalted, born, Brendan, forget Ian Garry's personality. Does his movement, length, and takedown defense give Islam his toughest match at 170, or does Islam still dominate? Islam's so damn good. He's pound for pound for a reason, number one. But yeah, you know, all zestiness aside, it should be his toughest one by far. It should be his toughest fight.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta almost expect him to get taken down, and I think he has to expect that. And that's just, I think maybe he's a bit delusional, but that works for fighters because you just need to be delusional enough for long enough to get a W, and that, yeah, it works, right? It's not a sustainable business model, but it can work for a few fights.
Yeah.
But that's all you need. And he has that ability to go out there and say, oh, he's not going to take me down. He might get taken down, but he still believes in his head that that's not going to be enough for him to lose a fight. And like, that's an incredible power to have that type of mentality, to go out there thinking that he can't be beat. And even if he gets taken down, not a problem. And but you need that if you're going to fight a guy like Islam. I mean, you can't not have that. In my head, I always give fighters the benefit of the doubt. Like, of course he's going to find a way to get up. Of course he's going to have a better strategy. Of course he's going to have a better tactic. And then they go out and fight, and then they just do what everybody else does and fall apart. And then I go, I don't know why I even gave this guy the benefit of the doubt. And that's why I have a hard time picking fights, because I'm always thinking that one fighter is going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And is confident as I have, as much confidence as I have in Ian Garry to be able to figure it out, it could just easily be rinse and repeat for Islam.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, he controlled JDM from pillar to post.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember doing our breakdown for that fight, and we're talking about size and like JDM's boxing. The things you have to talk about, of course, the things that, make sense to talk about on paper, and then you see it unfold and you go, oh, well.
Like in that one, I'm like, of course Craig Jones is going to have him prepared for this stuff. And it wasn't enough, right?
Yeah.
It just, you saw him trying to do it, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So, and I have the same sentiment towards Ian. Of course he's going to find a way to figure out how to neutralize Islam, whether it's just being really active and very squirmy. But I'll say this, Ian Garry has a body type that if he gets taken down, it's going to be hard to get up. Mm-hmm. Like if he gets put on his back, it's going to be hard to get up. He can't allow his hips to get too far underneath him, because if he can keep his legs out, he can make it hard for Islam to capture both legs to get a takedown. But if he gets his hips underneath him.
Thomas also warned against relying too heavily on Gary's previous performances when attempting to predict exactly how he will approach Islam. This matchup could force Ian to fight in a completely different way. What worked against previous opponents may not work against Makhachev, and Gary's ability to recognize that and adapt could ultimately become one of the most important factors when the cage door closes. For Din Thomas, Gary's personality should never distract people from the serious threat he presents once the cage door closes. Thomas takes his analysis of Gary's mindset even further, arguing that anyone preparing to face Islam Makhachev almost needs an extraordinary level of self-belief. At some point during the fight, Thomas expects Gary to be taken down. The important question is what happens immediately afterward. Against many fighters, being taken down once may not seem particularly significant. Against Islam, however, it can become psychologically damaging because opponents understand what usually follows. Makhachev establishes control, improves position, drains their energy, and gradually removes their options. That is where Thomas believes Gary's almost stubborn confidence could actually become one of his greatest weapons. Ian has convinced himself that he belongs at this level and that he possesses the tools necessary to defeat Makhachev. If Islam takes him down, Gary cannot suddenly begin questioning everything he believed throughout training camp. Instead, Thomas believes he needs to treat the takedown as another problem to solve. Get back to his feet, reset, and continue fighting. Being taken down does not automatically mean the fight is lost. And against someone as relentless as Islam, Thomas believes that mentality is almost essential. Makhachev has built his dominance around making opponents feel as though resistance is pointless. He forces them to defend one position, then another, and another, until eventually they begin reacting instead of attacking. If Gary is going to produce the upset, he cannot allow that process to break his confidence. Even if Islam successfully imposes his game early, Ian needs to continue believing that the fight can change with one escape, one combination, or one perfectly timed counter. For Luke Thomas, meanwhile, one of the biggest dangers surrounding this matchup may actually be how easily people are dismissing Gary's chances. Luke acknowledges the obvious reality. Islam Makhachev is considered the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world, which makes picking against him extremely difficult. He has championship experience, elite wrestling, dangerous striking, tremendous composure, and a proven ability to make adjustments against world-class competition. But dominant champions do not remain undefeated forever. And throughout combat sports history, some of the biggest upsets have happened when a challenger entered the fight with almost everyone already assuming the champion would win. That is why Luke believes Gary should not simply be written off. Ian may not possess the same championship resume or collection of signature victories as Islam, but that does not mean he lacks the tools necessary to create serious problems. In fact, the enormous difference between how fans perceive the two fighters could make this matchup even more interesting. Almost everything is expected from Islam. Very little is expected from Gary. That allows Ian to enter the biggest fight of his career with an opportunity to completely change the direction of the welterweight division. Luke sees Gary as a significantly more dangerous challenger than the betting odds might suggest. While he still expects Makhachev to win, he believes Ian's defensive ability, movement, physical dimensions, and hunger could create problems Islam has not necessarily encountered in this exact combination before. And that hunger matters. Established champions eventually reach a point where every opponent is attempting to build their career by defeating them. For Islam, this is another championship defense. For Gary, this could become the fight that defines everything he has worked toward. Luke argues that rising contenders who remain hungry and relatively unproven at the championship level can sometimes become particularly dangerous because they bring different motivations, unusual styles, and fewer expectations. They have everything to gain. And Gary enters UFC 330 believing he has been preparing his entire career for exactly this opportunity. That is why Luke believes an easy victory for Islam would actually be far more impressive than many people currently realize. If Makhachev walks into the octagon, immediately neutralizes Gary's movement, consistently completes his takedowns, and dominates the fight without encountering serious resistance, that would make another enormous statement about the champion's level. But Luke doesn't necessarily expect things to be that simple. For him, the appeal of this matchup goes beyond simply asking who wins. The real fascination comes from watching how Islam solves the specific problems Gary presents. Can Makhachev consistently close the distance against a 6'3" opponent who wants to stay on the outside? Can he trap Garry against the cage without walking into straight punches, knees, or kicks? And if Garry successfully defends the early takedowns and forces Islam to spend longer periods striking at range, how quickly can the champion adjust? Those are the questions that make this fight so interesting. Most analysts still favor Islam Makhachev, and for obvious reasons. He has proven himself repeatedly against elite competition and possesses one of the most complete skill sets in MMA. But Garry doesn't need everyone to believe in him. He only needs his own confidence to remain intact when the fight becomes difficult. If he can maintain distance, survive the grappling exchanges, repeatedly return to his feet, and force Islam into an uncomfortable 5-round battle, the matchup could become much closer than many fans expect. But if Makhachev gets his hands on Garry early, establishes control, and begins systematically taking away the challenger's movement, Ian may quickly discover why so many elite fighters have struggled to solve the same puzzle. So who gets the job done when Islam Makhachev and Ian Machado Garry finally collide at UFC 330? Does Islam prove once again why he is considered one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in the world? Or can Ian Machado Garry use his size, movement, confidence, and fight IQ to shock everyone and capture the biggest victory of his career? Drop your prediction in the comments below, including how you think the fight ends. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more UFC breakdowns, expert predictions, fighter reactions, and the latest MMA updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.